Hey there, Yuris here, and welcome to Community Life. Here we talk with the amazing humans from the community world about their life journeys and learn from each other. And today we have a conversation with amazing one and only Carrie Melissa Jones, one of the best community experts I know, whose speeches I try to always listen and always learn something new from, and one of the kindest and most helpful people in the community world I know, and a good friend of mine. And it's our second community life conversation. So, if you want to know more about Carrie's connection with music since early childhood, the hardest hike Carrie had in her life, what kinds of things did Carrie do with her friend Lisa that kids should not be doing, and about the Carrie's cups collection, and many, many more, check out the link to our first conversation in the show notes. And just like that, hello, Carrie. Welcome back.
Hi.
I'm
Yay. I'm so excited to be here.
It's been forever ago, like just 2.5 years, but it
Yes.
sounds like forever ago. And so many things changed, so many things
Yes.
happened. And the fun thing is that today I'll be asking you not my own questions, but those of some good friends from the community world. So let's
Yay.
do it.
Yay.
And the first question is super important, and please focus. So it's from Shannon Emery. If
Okay.
you were a sandwich, what kind of sandwich would you be and why?
Why am I not surprised? This is from Shannon. Oh, love you, Shannon. If I were a sandwich, um, I'm like thinking about my favorite sandwich, but I don't think that it's just like the sandwich I would be. But yeah, we'll just start there. So we'll just start there with my favorite sandwich. So my favorite type of sandwich is a deli sandwich, and there's a lot of deli sandwiches. I live in the Bay Area now. I've moved. That's one of the things that has changed. And the bread that I love is called Dutch Crunch. So it's like a very crunchy bread that's like it's like a French bread, but like sweet and crunchy on top. And I think that's me. I think that I like sweet and crunchy, and um, probably with like turkey and cranberry sauce. Very like classic American.
Uh,
um, but I
so
don't know. Yeah.
you told about that you moved. So
Yeah.
how do you feel right now? How do you like your new place? Like what changed in your life since the time you moved?
Oh my gosh. So yes, we moved only 6 months ago. It feels like it's been years. But we moved 6 months ago. I was living in Wisconsin. We had lived there for 4 or 5 years, so I could finish my graduate degree. And then we were looking at, where do we want to raise a family, and where do we want to like continue to go from here? And I loved Wisconsin. I would have stayed there in a heartbeat. Midwest represent. Um, but my one of my very best friends from way back in my childhood, she actually we had lived together in New Zealand for a year after college, and she fell in love with farming while we were there. We worked on vineyards and on farms. And so she ended up getting a farm in Northern California, which it's near Napa Valley, a big wine region in California. And she said, Carrie, if you can't find a place to live in Wisconsin, come live on my farm with me and my two boys. And she's married to our mutual best friend from high school. And so, we gave it, Dom and I gave it some thought, Dom, my partner, and we said, you know what? Now's the time. If we're going to do something wild, like we're going to do it now. Marlo's not even a year old. She wasn't at the point. And so, yeah, we live on a farm property next, like I'm like a couple feet away from my best friend. We live in a separate house, so we're not like living in a house together. So that's nice because I'm an introvert and I like to have my solo time. But yeah, I live on a farm now. There's chickens. There's a summer camp that happens on the property. I'm going to be working with uh, my friend Marie. That's who invited us out here. Um, and Travis, her husband, to like figure out what's next for the farm property because it really will be like a place where people can come and visit, a place where you might take classes and workshops. And so there's just like this whole world of adventure happening, and roosters, and we're right next to a dairy farm and goats and everything else. So it's just, I'm very connected to nature now. I'll just say
Hmm.
that. So yeah,
So, so what was this move because of your friend or because of it's close to wine region? It's because.
doesn't hurt. It's because like especially being in grad school, I just read so much research and my all my work is about connection. And like everything in the research points to the importance of living interdependently with others.
Hmm.
And so much of, I mean, Western culture, but I think just the world is moving in this direction of less interdependence and more like individualism and all that. And it's creating horrible mental health situations. If you raise children, it's very hard to do so without a deep system of support, an extensive system of support. And so yeah, I just, looking at that and then thinking about what do I want my life to be like? And also what is the world in which I want my daughter Marlo to grow up? I want her to know interdependence. I want her to know that she doesn't have to figure everything out on her own. I want her to know what it's like to have an extended network of support. So yes, like it's beautiful here and that does not hurt things. Although I will tell you, like long term, I'm worried about California and I would actually much rather be in Wisconsin from a climate change perspective. Um, but just that opportunity to raise Marlo in that way, I think is really important. And I think I needed it too. I needed to feel that support. I grew up here in the Bay Area, and so all my best friends are here, so I just have a lot more support than I did in Wisconsin.
And you told also about more connection to the nature, and then you have chickens
Yes.
and the dairy
Yeah.
and all these animals and stuff. So,
Yeah.
what changed in your like? How does it help to your mental health? This connection with
Oh,
nature.
it's night and day. There will be times where I'm like stuck in my email inbox and I will look out my window. I have a window in front of me and I can see there's a berry patch. Like a big patch is it's huge. And there's a lot of berries, raspberries, blueberries, strawberries that grow out there. And sometimes I'll just be like, you know what? I'm gonna close my laptop. I'm gonna go pick some strawberries. And like that is such a deep privilege that I can't even like begin to like let's uncover the layers of privilege inherent in that, right? But like I think everyone should be able to do that and remember, there's I think a lot of people on social media right now, there's like the saying of like touch grass when somebody's like just kind of acting a little bit like, out there. It's like go touch grass, get back in connection with nature. Well, I do that multiple times a day now. And I don't get caught up in like stuff that doesn't really matter.
Hmm.
That's huge. Huge, huge, huge.
Sounds like more your time and your nature time, and yeah, it's so
Yeah.
nice. It's so nice to be able to go out and just be not within the cars and buildings and all this like concrete
Yeah.
constructions, but like, yeah, touching like real grass, real
Yeah.
trees, real animals. By the way, what are your relationships with chicken?
Very serious question. I keep a healthy distance from them um, because I know that like they're not pets to me. There's people that will you can go all over Instagram or TikTok. There's people that treat chickens as pets, including my partner Dom. I just don't want to get too close to them because like life is so fragile. Like I let Marlo, she plays with them and stuff, but we had to one of them time came yesterday and it was hilarious. Our nanny, she speaks only Spanish. And so I've been like speaking Spanish with her, but Dom doesn't speak hardly any Spanish, but he really wanted to be involved in um, killing this. We had to kill the rooster because it was starting to get aggressive. And so they were out there. They are nanny like picked up a knife from our kitchen and just like started like stomping outside to go get the rooster. And Dom was like, I want to go, I want to go. And so he was following her and they like I think it was actually really beautiful because like the person, Dom, who raised this rooster got to say goodbye to the rooster. It was like a very and it was, not like it wasn't loud. It was just like the rooster knew. you
Yeah.
know? Yeah, yeah. And
Like,
it's just reminds you of like the frailty of life. And yeah. Anyway, and Bea
uh,
came this morning and she was like, yeah, just so you know, the meat is black in the chicken, and I'm gonna make it in a soup. So
I can imagine. I
it
can
was,
imagine this conversation. Yeah, you've been a good friend, but you're becoming too angry. It's time to say goodbye. Sorry.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. I watched out the window and I was like, I don't want to see, the gory anything, but it was very humane. It was very humane, though.
But also, like, you also reminded me a little. I had a conversation with Luke Zimmer, and he told how he played chicken bowling. So maybe it's something that you can also
What is
try.
this?
I want to tell you all the details. I will ask
Okay.
Luke to connect with you, and like you will discuss it in the audio because he did this. He did that.
Okay.
It's like he has to share all the details with you, but it
Okay.
was fun. And
Yeah.
there is even a video somewhere on how he did this chicken bowling. But maybe something you can try. And talking about a family and raising your daughter. So there is a question from Aveli. So she asked, how has your view on community building changed after becoming a mom? But I would like to rephrase it a little and add, how has your view on life overall changed after
Mm.
becoming a mom?
Oh my gosh. It's a huge question. And it has changed drastically. I didn't want it to.
Hmm.
Let me start by saying that. Like I was grasping. Um, it's funny in my 20s, I don't know if it's funny as much as it is like confronting my own biases, but in my 20s, I remember thinking I had like these mentors that I looked up to, and when they had kids, I would just notice that like I didn't hear from them as much and it was harder to get in contact with them, and I was like, I won't be like that. That's me. Well, I am like that. It is very hard to get a hold of me now. Um, I have had to ruthlessly prioritize like in ways that are really difficult for me. And I've had to really like reconsider my entire identity. So that's not a small thing. Um, and while, you know, have been becoming a parent, um, we've also been going through like this kind of, it's not quite a recession economically, but certainly like the economy is doing weird things, and investment in community has really pulled back over the last 2 years. Um, so like my career kind of went on the back burner for a while. And I think it naturally had to, because I was like pushing so hard to try to make things happen that just weren't happening because economically companies weren't making these investments in the same way they were before. And then at the same time, I'm like, well, who am I without my job? And then I'm like, well, okay, I'm like a caretaker and I'm a mirror to my daughter. And like, what do I want her to see me spending my time doing? That mirror is constantly, being held up to me now. And that was not there before. It's, if I'm like feeding her, for instance, like we're having lunch together and I'm on my phone and she's staring at me on my phone, which has happened. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay, I should really, check myself. Yeah, all of that. And I've always had like a very low tolerance for bullshit. But now I have like a zero tolerance policy. And especially like for-profit businesses that like talk about community and how important it is and then don't resource it, like don't take actions in alignment with what their stated values are. Like I just don't have time for it. I don't have energy for it. If you're serious about it, great, talk to me. If you're not serious about it, like go waste someone else's time. That's how I feel. Because there's so much work that needs to be done from a community building perspective. Um, and that's also locally. So I've also will say another change is like I've been a lot more invested in my local community where I live. And that's really, really important for Marlo to have, people in an extended network, but also for me to have that too. And yeah, I'm just investing a lot more of my time in friendships that are here in front of me.
What activities are you investing your time into?
Um, it seems like it's something different every week. So like this week, I'm taking Marlo to her first parent and me soccer or
Hmm.
American football or non-American football
Yeah.
football um, class. Um, I am getting more involved in like some of the parenting groups. There's actually here in Petaluma, there's something called the Blue Zones Project, which is, I don't know if you've heard about blue zones, but there's a bunch of research into like these areas called blue zones around the world. Like the Mediterranean is one. Forget which city in Japan it is. That's another one. But people just live longer there, and researchers
Hmm.
have been like, why do they live so long? And why are they so healthy and happy? And so they've taken that research and then they're applying it to different cities around the world. And so Petaluma is one of the cities that is investing in this. So like they do yoga classes and sound baths and like all this stuff and like hikes and all that. So um, yeah, just I'm getting involved in like little things and just like letting it unfold and seeing where things take me. Um, yeah.
What new parts of yourself have you met through becoming a mother?
Oh my gosh, that is such a deep question, Yuri.
And it's not
Um,
mine, but also it's from a person who decided to be anonymous. So,
mm, um, I would say it's not new, but it's a rediscovery of like my silliness and playfulness. I've always been kind of like, there's a fly in my room, sorry. I've always been um silly, but I've like kind of kept it under wraps a
hmm.
little bit, especially in corporate environments. You could just feel like, oh, it's not the place for this. Well, now again, I don't care. Like we're all just kids trying to figure stuff out, is what I realize. And yeah, just like playing with Marlo, I realized how easy it is to access like play and silliness and um how many like walls we put up to stop us. There's Dom. To stop us from living that way, especially in corporate environments, because that was typically the environment that I was in, or academic environments. And it's like actually the thing that we all want is play in our lives, but we stop ourselves from embracing it a lot. So I would say that's one of the things. Um, that's probably the main thing.
I just wanted to, like, you told that you kind of tried to hide this silly part of you, and I'm curious why.
Hmm. Um, I think for self-protection. Um, you grow up and you just sort of learn like what is celebrated around you. So and this is something I've been reflecting on a lot too, coming back to San Francisco, and coming back to the Bay Area. I was I was not born in California. I was born in Georgia. My whole family is Southern, which is very different culturally from San Francisco and this like go, 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 go attitude and like, how can I be more prestigious than you kind of attitude
Hmm.
that is endemic to the culture here. Um, and I think I grew up and I just shut the like silly, playful parts of me off because I noticed like, oh, if you want to go to Stanford, you do this and this and this. And if you want to go work at, and I didn't work for Google, but if you want to go work for Google or you want to go work for IBM or whatever big company it is and what and will be in the next 10 years, OpenAI, whatever comes after OpenAI when OpenAI implodes on itself. Like that's what's important. And so like playfulness is not part of that equation.
Hmm.
And so I learned to shut that off. I learned to study really hard. I learned to like be very serious. Um, and I think what I learned in grad school and then even more becoming a parent is like you actually learn best when you're having fun. um, and when you're resting. Like you learn by sleeping. When you sleep, you're like working things out. Like I've figured out survey questions in dreams before. like like that's the truth. And so yeah, I think I just did that as, protection and also like wasn't necessarily celebrated in my home life either. So just rediscovering that and also just yeah, prioritizing it, I think has been really important for me.
It's something about fun and being a little bit silly. It's something that I can totally relate to because that's what I noticed that, sometimes you're doing some crazy stuff. And even if we're talking about community building, I don't know, when you just have a good laugh with a person, it's like
Hmm.
brings so much connection. And you know, like you can do some strange things sometimes and like being totally okay about it. And I feel like it also shows your real personality because you know,
Yeah.
the more we try to hide behind some curtains or like behind a mask, the harder it is to really build this human relationships, human connections. And I feel like, you know, you were in your life journey. So you were from being silly and being like really open to those relationships and kind of closing it down. And then
Hmm.
stepping up into the community building world and have becoming a mother. You're kind of like unfolding this
Yeah.
silliness and this real human connections back again. And
Hmm.
yeah, I feel like it's a great benefit of becoming a mother, you know?
Yeah, it is. It really is. Um, Truly. Yeah. Yeah.
But we all
And
know that becoming a parent it's not only bright sides. So what are
yeah,
the dark sides of becoming a mother?
lack of sleep, which is persisting, constantly being sick. I'm getting over a cold right now. Um, my time is limited. My time is very, very limited, and I cannot invest my time in ways that I was doing before. So for instance, like I've been doing this YouTube live challenge, where I'm doing like I'll go live on YouTube once a week. And in my previous way of living, I would have planned all the scripts ahead of time. I would have like everything would have been, like I would have promoted the whole thing, and I just don't have time. So I'm just going live on YouTube. I'm not sending any emails about it. Like it's not a bet. I would tell no one to do it this way. Like it's definitely I'm not operating by a best practice. Um, but I'm just doing what I can with what I have. And I actually think that a lot of the things I was spending my time on weren't that important. Um, like in the grand scheme of things, like how much does it matter that I sent out an email or not to my email list? Like, yeah, maybe okay, like we would have gotten more people to show up and then that would have converted into more sales. Okay, I have time for that. I can do it in a few months. I can, like so I just think I've like loosened my grip on things. And actually before Marla was born, this is kind of an aside, but before Marla was born, I was part of a community experience. It was an 8-week experience where we went through with like a group of like 4 or 5 of us. And it was on like the spiritual practice of surrendering across different religious traditions. And so I did like 8 weeks of deep like surrendering
Hmm.
work. Um, and so that's what I've been like really practicing is just surrendering. Because again, like I don't have all the time that I used to have. I can't move as fast as I used to move. And maybe that's good. Maybe that's actually really, really good, is what I've landed on.
What exactly were you surrendering?
Control. um, Control of my time, control of what I got done in a day. Because that is never, my list is always long and there's not been a single day where I've crossed everything off since she was born. Yeah. It just keeps flowing into the next. And so I just have to surrender to the list. The list is just there to remind me like the other things I need to do when I come back tomorrow and try again. Um, and I think the first few months of motherhood were very difficult for me because I really didn't want to take a maternity leave. I didn't. I love my work. I love my work so very, very much. But also like recovering from childbirth is you need to do it physically. Um, but my brain was like, just like, oh my gosh, I just want to work. Just like, I want to be good at something is actually what it was. I want to be good at something and I'm good at work and I'm not good at this mothering thing yet. Um, and so, yeah, I think just it was really hard for me because I noticed like my time is not, I can't, it's not predictable anymore at all in any way, shape, or form. Like when she wakes up, I have to stop doing what I'm doing. One time it took me an hour. It took me actually a whole day. It took me an entire day. I was ordering this like baby carrier or something on some website. And it took me the entire day to get the order filled because every time I try to like enter the credit card number or whatever, she'd start crying or like so it was like 24 hours it took me to just order a baby carrier on the internet. And I remember being so frustrated by that, but also being like, okay, I need to let go. Like this is it now. This is life for a little bit.
What does it mean for you to be good in mothering thing?
Um, well, good enough. Let's use the word good enough.
Yeah,
My
exactly.
therapist often says like I think there's a book actually called The Good Enough Mother. And that's what she says. She's like, you don't have to be good or the best or anything. You just need to be the good enough mother. And we were talking about this before you hit record, but like apologizing when you make mistakes, um, because you will make mistakes. So I think good is just being present as much as I can and taking responsibility for what's mine. And I've like foisted upon another human being.
And you know, the fun thing that you mentioned this book for kids, and I recently read some books, and I'm still in a process of reading the book called How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk. And I
Mm,
feel like me personally, that it's a great guide, not just for talking to kids, but
yeah,
to talking to adults,
yeah,
because they are just grown up kids and basically nothing changed. They has
yeah.
pretty much the same like childhood traumas, and they have pretty much the same attitude. So like,
Yeah,
you know, those things that are written for kids, they work for everyone. So I feel like it's a
absolutely.
combo, you know, when you're learning how to deal with a kid, you're learning how to deal with people around you. And
Yeah.
it's the best feedback loop because you'll get like true, honest, sometimes hard feedback, but right away, you know,
Yes,
because
totally.
a real person can like smile to you and like, ah, that's just a dickhead,
Yeah.
something like that. But it will tell you to your face, you know, and then you
Yes.
have to deal with it.
Yeah. Or like, I mean, because I have my best friend has two little boys, and I notice like talking to them, like I can't push them for information, like I have to just sit. And sometimes I ask them a question and then they won't answer me. And then 5 minutes later, they'll come back and be like, oh, here's the answer. And I'm like, oh, that's just how long it takes them to kind of process and feel safe and all that. And so, yeah, it's amazing. It's like you can really see the process of trust building happening and to create safety and all of that, like on a really small scale.
Yeah, I feel like I will ask you after this recording. I will ask you a list of the whole parenting book that you read. Maybe share some of with you. And
Same.
but here is a question from Max Pete. So,
Mm.
did you have a favorite superhero growing up?
Mm. Did I? Um, Trying to think. I always loved like the Power Rangers, but now watching it, I'm like, oh, this is like the most racist show ever. Um, like this is awful. Um,
But I feel like back then all the shows were racist. So like,
yeah, I know. It's just, at least we can watch it now and be like, oh, okay. Like, um, uh, my answer to this is probably not very good, but as part of my like shutting off my silly side, I also was like very anti like any kind of fantasy, anything or like cartoons, like starting around middle school. Like I just didn't like, and I still like have some trouble with like things that are animated. And this is really disappointing because I have a lot of friends who are self-professed geeks and they're like, what's wrong with you? Why are you so boring that you don't like fantasy stuff or like, whatever. Um, I think that's my own failing. That's not anything to do with it. It's just because like I have a really hard time accessing like the part of me that's like can imagine that, or I have historically. Um, what I will say is that my superhero that I look up to now is Dolly Parton. And she's a real person, but she's a superhero to me.
you know, I was totally shocked that you will answer this way. So I had no other like answers. I was just waiting for you to finally tell me that
Dolly.
it's that it's Dolly. And there is a question from Wiley Gabby. How did you
Oh,
first come to know and fall in love with Dolly?
oh my gosh, that's perfect. Oh, Wiley. Um, how did I? I mean, I feel like she's always been a part of my family, honestly. And I think Wiley will understand this. Wiley's from the South. My family is from the region of Tennessee where she is from, and so she's just like she is East Tennessee, and I've never known life without Dolly. So she's just like been like this surrogate aunt who I've never met, basically my whole life. Um, and I remember I didn't know that I loved Dolly in college, but my roommate Rebecca was like, you've always been obsessed with Dolly Parton. Like even when I met you, and I used to, she would tell me that like other people would tell me that they like Dolly Parton, but they were from California, and I just didn't take them seriously because like you're from the South, so or you're from Tennessee, so you're like a real fan. But I think I really embraced my love of Dolly Parton, like not till later on. I didn't really, and this includes like the way my mom would talk about her a lot. It's really interesting if you look at like how women talked about Dolly Parton. My mom would often talk about her like, oh, she's trashy, like very this Southern woman, like, and that's her whole thing. And I'm like, well, actually, she's embracing like who she is inside. Like, yeah, she's trashy, like in like the best possible way, but she's also grace personified. Like, I don't think I really understood that until I was like in my 20s. Yeah. And I like, in college, I had a lot of like gay queer friends and they were all just like obsessed with Dolly Parton. And I think I just was like, yeah, heck yeah. So yeah, she's just an angel among us.
How did she shape you as who you are today?
Mm. Um, I think she's given me a lot of courage in my life. Whenever I've been like, lost and down, like I have her one of her memoirs. Um, and I think I've just like thought about her and what she went through. She grew up on, with very little money, a huge family, had nothing and worked her tail off to get where she was. And she had family that supported her, like her uncle who took her to Nashville and took her in. And like that's just what you do for people, if you love them, you support their dreams. And she does it for other people now too. So yeah. And also like she talks a lot about she's famously non-political, right? And I have my own feelings about that. I think there's some things where she needs to take more of a stand on, but I also understand it. Like she thinks that because she believes in God, and that's not my thing, but like she believes like her religion is like you live like in a way that is loving and accepting, like you embody it every day. You don't have to go to church or go to a temple or anywhere else to do that. And I really, really admire that. And I think a lot of us live spiritually without even necessarily believing in one God or whatever. And so like living and embodying that is really powerful to me. So yeah, and having Marlo, and last time we spoke, I think I talked about how like the vulnerability of singing and how I've had a lot of trouble singing. Well, like singing to Marlo is like that's like a religious experience for me. And I've been singing her Dolly Parton songs since she was in the NICU. And that's just it just makes me feel really close to her and to my family. And yeah, anyway, love Dolly. Is
Finally,
this a Dolly
finally.
Parton podcast?
I was asking you back then, like, if you were to become a singer, and you are finally getting into practicing to
Hmm.
your daughter at the moment.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm curious, what is your spiritual practice at the moment? So you
Mm.
told that you're not religious, it's not in God, but
Hmm.
like what is your spiritual connection with this world?
Mm. Um, it's changed a lot in my life, and I feel like now it's just in these like little moments, and especially like coming back to nature. That is when I feel like the most I feel connected to something beyond myself, my family, my work, all that. I feel and I'm sure that we are part of something that will continue long after we exist. It's the same thing with like, the chicken and like saying goodbye to our rooster. It's like that was really hard. That was really hard for me because it was like we made a human decision to like end that animal's life versus like when you're out in nature, and my dad has taught me this like over many hikes and years and all that stuff, that if you see an animal struggling or suffering, actually leave it alone. Unless it's, there's exceptions to this, and that's why there's sanctuaries and all of that stuff. Um, if you like, I remember seeing on a beach once, there was a bird that was struggling in the tide of the ocean. And I said, Dad, should we like go bring it up, to like help it? And he's like, no, it's probably that bird's time, you
Mm.
know? And yeah, I just think about like that. I don't know, like I don't think I have words for it necessarily, but I just think that we leave like ripple effects everywhere we go. And we're so lucky. Like I'm so lucky to be on this planet at the same time as you, Yuri. And like 200 years from now, no one we know will exist. But like what a cool thing that we all get to be here, like having this party at the same time. And then yeah, what do we want to leave then for those who are coming after us? Because when we think about like I think about my family who have passed on, it's like I think about them as old, like that was old timey. Well, that's going to be us.
Yeah.
Our ancestors or our future generations will look at us like, oh, that was old times.
All the times.
Um, so yeah, how do we want to be remembered? And maybe it's not even our names or anything. It's just like what imprint do we want to leave on the world? Yeah. I don't know if that answers your question, but I feel like, yeah.
It also sounds to me like kind of like living more in a moment and embracing what we have right now instead of like thinking about past mistakes or thinking about
Yeah.
future stuff. Because, like we can't change the past and we
Mhm.
think that we can change the future, influence the future, but I'm not sure that we really can. At least
Yeah.
we think we can. So,
Hmm.
and it's fun, I was reading a Bible some time ago, like just to understand like what's inside, like what. And one thing that I remember from there is the main thing is to live in a moment and to think about your today. Like not
Hmm.
about tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, etc. But think about today. And I feel like that even without being connected to God and faith, I feel like you are just living this already. At least what I hear.
I'm trying. It's not perfect. But
No
I
one's
think, I mean,
perfect.
one thing that's really important is like living in the present does not mean that you can't plan for the future either. Like, in fact, another thing I think about a lot is like how being present and like making intentional decisions in the present compounds in the future. And like how all these tiny little moments of being present with Marlo, for example, builds up trust so that in the future she can come to me for things and she doesn't feel like I'm her enemy. I'm sure there will be a time. Um, but like
Exactly.
I would hope overall she knows that that's not the case. And and same thing with like planning for your career. Like just because you're being present with your work in this moment doesn't mean that you're not also positioning yourself to be in a good career place in the future. But I don't have all this figured out. I don't know.
No, I've recently met this quote from in some books that if you are showing a rainbow to your child, your work won't go away. But if you will
Mm,
be focused on work, the rainbow will go away. So
oh,
it's like very, this also thing kind of thing. But yeah,
yeah.
I feel like we can talk about it forever. And I have really, really serious question from Jenny Weigel. So
Okay.
on a roller coaster, do you sit in the front, middle, or back row, or not even go on the roller coaster at all?
I don't go on the roller coaster. I don't like that feeling of not being in control. I don't like the dipping feeling in my stomach. It's not for me.
But
I've
you've
done it
been
once to
there.
like,
Okay.
I have been on it to impress people that I'm dating typically. I'm glad I'm not in that time of my life currently. Because I hate it. I hate the feeling. I hate it.
So basically you just checked, okay, not mine.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank
I've
you.
done it.
Never again. Okay.
I've same reason I'm afraid of heights. And I skydove. I went skydiving once and I was like, maybe this will cure it. No, it made it much worse. I will never do that ever again. Ever, ever, ever again.
So it doesn't work that way that you have to
No,
face your fears.
no. Exposure therapy doesn't work for everything.
Okay, so there is another question from Thea Silairo. So,
Mm,
what are you feeling most excited and energized about right now?
mm. Um, what am I feeling most excited and energized about? Um, Honestly, probably I'm sitting right now. I think we're in a moment right now as a like community building as a profession of great change. I think we're transitioning, and this is largely due to like again, economically things are changing, but also artificial intelligence, like the big elephant in the room at all times. Is like, what's it going to take away from us? What's it going to add to us? And so I think what's really exciting to me is that we're going to have to reckon with like AI can do the parts of our job for us that actually most of us don't really like doing very much, including like analytics and even like presentation building and creating and moderation, like writing, not moderation itself, it can do a lot of it, but like writing the responses and all that stuff. So I think that our work really becomes like we need to get rid of, and I was just sharing this at a conference last week in a talk that I was giving, but we need to get rid of this idea that we own community. That like that's our job is to build community for our organizations or even like locally. Like if we run a small business, like it's not our job to own that community. It's actually our job to weave community into every aspect of our organizations. And I think that our success in our work will be measured by like how well does everybody understand that community is everyone's job. Community building is everyone's job. Relationship building is everyone's job. You don't get exempt from it because you're in the engineering org. Um, like because it's important for every meaningful outcome that any organization cares about. And I think just historically, a lot of us have thought like, okay, well, I own this, so I'm going to do everything for it. And we're currently reckoning with like a lot of the jobs are going away. And so we're going to have to like rebrand ourselves, but also our organizations aren't often giving us the power and influence we need to really like do the weaving of community into the organization. And so a lot of us are going to have to like leave those jobs or put on our big kid pants and say like, I'm going to advocate for this, like step up and watch me. And like do a lot more like internal PR for ourselves, which is, for better or for worse, like an important part of the work of leadership.
Sometimes I see those questions in some communities like, how do you protect your community from sales team? How do you protect your community from marketing team and all this stuff? And then at the end of the day, like, do you really need to protect community, or do you have to be better with your storytelling skills and kind of like
Yeah.
talking to people and accepting your teammates as internal community that you are also working
Yes.
with and kind of build this
Yes.
community internally and externally, both sides. So
Yeah.
it's always fun to see those conversations like, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
protecting community. I'm like, but who are paying you money? Like at the
No,
end of
yeah,
the
you're
day.
insulating your work from the rest of the organization. That's dangerous. You don't want to protect the community from those folks. You want to educate those folks on how to be better stewards of the community with you.
There is a question from Belen Aguilo. If
Hmm.
you had to let go of any past beliefs on success and
Mm.
reintegrate new ones, what would you change for what?
Oh man. I'd get rid of like any notion of like financial anything and vanity metrics about size of community, size of followership, all that stuff. None of it matters at all. Um, what I would instead focus on is like how much joy do I feel on a regular basis and how much joy do the people around me feel? How much freedom do the joy around me or do the people around me feel about our work? How much freedom do I have in my day to like determine what I do with my time? Like that is power right there. Like I don't care if you work for Salesforce and you make 250,000 US dollars a year. Like you're in meetings back to back to back to back. They're sending you on airplanes first class. Like great. Week after week, but you have no freedom. Like I would never do that. Like and like hopefully anybody who's listening to this from Salesforce like knows that I understand why you would make that decision. And for me, freedom is it's invaluable. Like the fact that I can, and again, we talked about like the layers of privilege here. I I'm aware of them, and I have consciously like chosen and worked hard to have a life where I can go to the pool with my daughter from 11 to 12, where I can yeah, where that my day is my own, where people don't schedule meetings with me like by surprise. That is one of the things that just makes me feel like, ugh. Um, that is so important to me. It has taken me so much work to get here. I do not take it for granted, especially as a parent. And I think in an ideal world, everyone would have that freedom, but that is not the world that we live and operate in.
You were talking about having meetings scheduled randomly, and I remember
Oh,
the times when I had my calendar link and with some time slots, and then randomly seeing in the middle of the day popping up some conversation with me. I'm like, oh, okay, what is it? What the hell is it? Now I
no,
don't have Calendly, so
no. I
every
have an
time we,
executive assistant for a reason. I do not do Calendly.
yeah, but
Yeah.
still, it feels like it's popping up on your schedule, and
She always
like,
asks me first. She's amazing.
okay,
She's like, "How will this feel in your day, Carrie?" And then she tells me like that you shouldn't do that, like, you know. So, yeah.
safeguard. Okay. So there is a question from Jojo Lee. So what's your
Mm,
favorite childhood dish and why?
like food.
Yeah.
Um, Resoundingly, it's banana pudding. Banana cream or like banana cream pie or like banana pudding with vanilla wafers, which have you ever had that, Yuri?
I'm not sure, but it sounds familiar.
It's like a pie
Uh-huh.
crust, but then you fill it with like pudding and then you put these cookies on it, and then you put banana slices on it, and then you layer it with the filling, like pudding, and it like you let it soak for 24 hours, and
Mm,
it gets soft and mushy,
mm.
and it's just like pure comfort food. Um, so good.
But yeah, I didn't try it, but it sounds tasty.
It's
So
delicious and very American.
I can imagine, but it's really nice. But why it was your favorite food, childhood food?
Um, I mean, my mom used to make it for me. It was like a special treat. And I would help her. It's like something that a kid could very easily like layer these things on. And it just to me like it just tastes like comfort. It's like just comfort food to the extreme. And it's like a very southern banana cream pie. It's very southern. Yeah.
And since it was a special treat, for what occasions did your mom cook it for you?
Mm, I mean, I feel like she would have it for holidays and things like that, but it was also like if pudding was on sale at the grocery store. It's actually what it was. That's my mom for you. She got a deal, is what would happen. She got a deal, and then she would make it. And so we just have it like randomly. For me, it was like random treat.
Got it. Got it. And I definitely need to try it, like after you explain how it looks like, how it feels. So if you will have a good recipe
I do.
sometime soon, please share it with me. I will
Yes.
try to do it at home. Yeah.
Yes.
At
I do.
least taste just a little. Okay, so I will ask you after the
Yeah.
recording. So you connected us a long time ago with Tim McDonald, and I learned about Tim from you, and he's an amazing person. And since like we have a lot of conversation, he's just amazing. And he
Hmm.
he kept his promise because we had a community life conversation before he had an operation, and we agreed
Mm-hmm.
that we will talk a year later. So he kind of like kept his promise, which is nice. I would say I'm super happy. And there is a question from Tim. So,
Mm-hmm.
if you could tell what your life would look like in another 10 years, what would it be?
Hmm. I'm like, how old will I be? I'm like trying to think. Um, what would it be? I mean, I think certainly like I would be a lot more embedded in my local community and do a lot more, like maybe take on some leadership roles um locally, and probably still. be here in California. I don't know if I'll be on the farm in 10 years. That's TBD, um, because it's part of a bigger consideration around Marie and Travis's like business. But I would like to still be in California. Um, maybe have more than one kid. Like, do I want to make my life that complicated? I don't know. Um, yeah, and the kind of work I'd be doing, I definitely like will have written another book in 10 years. And I
Oh,
think in
okay.
10 years, a 10-year horizon, I think I can commit to. Um, and hopefully like working with more organizations who are really walking the talk of community building. I don't think you'll see me, and this might change because the organizations themselves might change, but I don't think you'll see me working with a lot of B2B SaaS companies. Um, all my respect to them, but they lose sight often, and it's easy to lose sight of the importance of belonging and connection when your metrics that you're measured on are really just like, you know, these ACV, blah, blah, MLQ, whatever, like
Oh my
all the
God.
acronyms, right? Yeah. And actually, I heard a VP a few weeks ago mention like for us at enterprise companies, and this was like for large enterprise, like publicly traded organizations, like sense of belonging is not important. What is really important is getting people information. And I deeply disagree with that. But those people are like leading organizations and leading very influential organizations. And that's the kind of thing that people are saying. And so I'm just like, I don't want to be working toward those ends. I'm not interested in it at all. So I'm probably losing some clients by saying this right now, but I'm just not. I
Or
don't want
maybe
to,
they losing a great expert to work with for sure. So
yeah. If they want
their
perspective,
problem.
they can hire me. Because yeah, you don't get the MLQ, ACV, whatever, without the relationship, the trust building, the loyalty, everything else. You're building a house of cards without it.
And what kind of companies will you be working with?
Um, Most likely, I mean, I would like to be doing, maybe I'll even go back and work on my PhD, but like doing more work in partnership with research foundations, research organizations, academic organizations, as well as cultural institutions, including like, um, it could include like religious organizations. Right now, we're working with a very large synagogue. It's been some of the coolest work I've ever done in my career. Um, yeah, so I just think like organizations that really, really care about belonging and see how important it is in their members' entire lives, like from birth to passing.
Yeah, and it's like lifelong connections, and there is this study of people who were living like I I feel like it's a Stanford experiment or something like that
Mm,
called like that about the happiness, that the most happiest people and the like longer livers and all the stuff like they are connected with many people and
yeah,
having this good, nice relationships and always open to meet new people. And it's all because of that. And I feel like, yeah, even though, you know, I feel like communities everywhere, even if we are not talking professional about it, like your neighbors are your
hmm,
community, people you meet daily, it's kind of your community. And
yeah,
even, I'm walking my dogs, I know other people who are walking, I don't know their names,
yeah,
but we always say hello to each other, exchange some phrases here and there. It also feels like part of community. So I
it is.
totally get what you're talking about. And yeah, Carrie, I wish to have the sky as a limit to our conversation, but time is a limit. I still have the rapid fire questions. So let's
Okay,
do it.
all right,
Going to a pool or to a community soccer match?
cool.
Banana cake or sandwich?
Ooh, that's hard. Sandwich.
What's your favorite song at the moment?
Oh my gosh. Coat of Many Colors by Dolly Parton.
Name two people whom I should definitely reach out to and have this conversation with.
Oh gosh. Like who haven't you talked to at this point? That's what's hard.
It
You've talked to
doesn't
so
matter.
many.
Just name two people.
Oh my gosh, I can't. Pressure. Oh my gosh. Uh,
No pressure. No pressure at all.
my brain is going into like, um, follow up with me on that one. There's so many. I have too many. That's the issue. I'm like, I don't want to just like say two names and then, yeah.
Yeah, to make people feel excluded, but it's not like that. Okay, but yeah, I get it. So ask it forward. It's like pay it forward, but with questions. So ask
Mm.
a question a future guest will have to answer.
Oh yeah, I remembered this one from last time. Who is someone from your life who has had an unlikely impact on you?
Got it. And is there one question that I definitely should have asked you, but didn't?
Well, we didn't get to talk this time about my pie making business. Yeah.
I feel like we already uncovered all
Did we?
the
Did we do
yeah
that last time?
back
Okay.
yeah you told that
Then you're good.
you told that you decided to turn into this community stuff and then you are going to IT, but yeah, for
Oh, I'm
some.
coming back. I'm coming back.
Oh, that's okay. So tell me more.
I don't know what shape it's going to take yet, but I am making a lot of pie right now. And I actually live right by a co-op that is like a mill, makes flour from like in America. And like, it's
Yeah.
amazing. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can get flour made like right here. Um, so I'm thinking about maybe check in with me next summer because I'm thinking about submitting a pie into the county fair
Hmm.
to like, maybe get a prize for my pie making. Um, and then we'll see where it goes from there. We'll
That's how
see.
you're becoming connected with the community of the place where you live. Okay, so start
With
with
pie.
pie competition, then like create a pie business, and then build a pie
Yeah.
empire, and then you become this company who you don't work to work with. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Yeah,
Not
exactly.
SaaS, not SaaS, definitely
No,
not.
no, no, not sass.
Got it, got it. Okay, so yeah, I'll be definitely asking you more questions about pie making and what kind of pies would you like to make?
Um, I mean, I like because we're on a farm, like usually they're fruit pies at this point, like fresh fruit. Like I went and picked blackberries and then uh pears. I made like a pear brie pie the other day. Um, raspberries, yeah, anything fresh fruit.
And it's still amazing seeing you coming back into pie business. Yeah.
Yeah, that full
I'll be
circle.
looking up to your journey. So thank you very much. And Carrie, thank you very much for this conversation. I always I'm a huge fan of you. I'm always happy to talk to you. You're always making me smile, no matter what. I always learn a lot of things from you, and you was and still are the leading voice in the community industry for me personally. So please continue being amazing, Carrie. You are. And yeah, thank you so much for this conversation.
Thanks, Yuri, and thanks everybody for all these great questions.
I have still much more great questions, but it's always like time is the limit. So,
I know.
and yeah, see you in the community world.